But his father was aware of a plan to derail that movement. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So another figure that has a similar background is that of Frank Zappa, who was also in Laurel Canyon at the time.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for watching. By law, I have to tell you that this is for entertainment purposes only. All videos are property of Psychic Liz Cross, LLC. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm here with the amazing psychic Liz Cross. How are you doing today?
I am doing amazing, Mr. Photon. What's all this?
Well, I have Jim Morrison here. I'm wondering if you could bring him in.
Okay, yeah, I love channeling him. What would you like to know?
Mr. Morrison, we want to know what happened in your era of the 60s counterculture movement, especially around the Laurel Canyon area, and if there's any ties to MK Ultra or the government trying to derail the anti-war movement of the 60s by doing various nefarious things in the groups that you ran in. But first, I know we've probed Jim before, but I just want to touch briefly on some of the mysteries around him first before we get into the deeper kind of conspiracy stuff. Now, there's always been speculation around his death, right? And you may have covered this before, but it's worth mentioning again. We don't actually know because there was no autopsy that was performed when he passed away in Paris in 71. Did you have a drug overdose? Is that why you passed at that time?
Yes, his heart gave out.
Right. And so the theory is that possibly he had like a hot dose of heroin that maybe they thought it was cocaine.
It was too strong.
All right. And was there any sort of foul play involved, or was this just a mistake?
He says there was foul play, but what I'm picking up on in his energy field, the foul play is in the dosage amount.
Okay.
Was that
There wasn't.
purposefully done? No, but I mean, it was they cut it with things and they made it too potent and
Right.
it was contaminated. He said it was contaminated. Contaminated with what? With all kinds of chemical substances. So it made his heart just gave out.
Right. Okay. I wanted to know a little bit about some of the experiences he had as a young kid. There's a story that he witnessed a horrific car accident in New Mexico desert where there were some dead Native Americans, and he believed that the spirits entered his soul at that time. He even wrote a song about it. Was there such an event that had this kind of metaphysical action that happened to him?
Yes.
And is this where he later on in life developed his alternate persona, the Lizard King? Is that where this came from?
No, that's not where it came from.
Okay.
Did you really believe that those souls? Yeah, he did. So those souls in the car accident did not want to go to the light and they were looking to jump into another body.
Ooh. So
Okay.
so did he let them in, or what happened there?
Well, he didn't know what was going on. It
Right.
wasn't that he knew how to protect himself. They
Hmm.
tried to jump in, but he saw them go into the light.
Okay. And so he like saw this with his own eyes, like he saw this happen. How much of an impact was this on his creative life?
It was everything to him. It was so traumatizing. These people were mangled. The bodies were mangled.
Oof. Yeah. And so what did this serve in his soul contract?
Well, it was part of making him a star. You don't walk away from something like that without being affected.
Right.
And he tried to tell other people, but nobody would believe him. So then he started, keeping it inward.
Right.
And that is really when he started becoming more creative.
Jim Morrison's father was the commander of the fleet during the Gulf of Tonkin incident. So, for those of you don't know your history, that's actually what got America in the Vietnam War with boots on the ground. And we now know, looking back with declassified documents, that the Gulf of Tonkin incident was an inside job. The Americans provoked this so that they could have a pretext to enter the war. We now know. So, what the researchers have found, and it could be coincidence, but we're going to find out, is that a lot of the artists that were in Laurel Canyon back in the 60s came from military backgrounds. And, that's maybe not too crazy to think that a lot of these kids would rebel against their parents and become rock and rollers. But a lot of them were military intelligence and held very high rankings, which is interesting. And now we know, looking back in history as well from declassified documents, that the counterculture to some degree seems to have been infiltrated by MK Ultra with the LSD experiments of the 60s that the US government did. So we're trying to find out, did indeed the US government influence this movement that Jim was a part of by asking Jim? That's really what we're after. So let's ask him about his father. Sorry, I thought I had a picture of his father up here, but I guess, there. That's his family there. Um, was your father, was there any influence on you in terms of direct influence in terms of you were aware or unaware that the military was trying to infiltrate the movement at the time that you were involved in?
Yeah, his father was aware. Yes.
Okay. So how was his father directly involved in that, or was he just aware of it?
He was directly involved.
And what was the involvement in that? Like, the goal?
Well, to shut down dissenting voices.
Okay. So was Jim being used by that group unknowingly or knowingly, or was he rebelling against it, or what was the actual dichotomy? Or
I'm getting a no from Jim. I mean, it's funny how these kids are rebellious, though. I mean,
Hmm.
kids are always rebellious, but for this many to be rebellious, that's kind of strange. Was there a lot? Yeah, they hated the military schools. They hated the schools. Basically, they were prepping them to join the military themselves.
Okay. Like, you mean that they were trying to get these kids that were popular rock and rollers to actually turn around and then support the military? Was that their goal?
Well, I mean, they weren't rock and rollers at the time, but just the military schools or the schools on base or that basically are attended by a majority of military kids,
Hmm.
they were trying to brainwash the kids into joining the military. This is great. This is the way forward. You're taken care of, your family. You already know what it's like, which is why
Right.
there was so much rebellion. It was very strict.
That makes sense to me. That's what most people would assume. It's not an odd thing that it maybe sparked this movement because they were all rebelling against that. That's just what kids do, right? But it seems like they also had a plan to basically infiltrate the counterculture because they were anti-war, right? There was a huge anti-war movement before even Jim got on the scene. Even before the music hit the scene, there actually was in the culture. Was Jim rebelling against this, or was there some sort of direct control from his father, even though he was rebelling?
He was definitely rebelling. And what about the direct control? The dad was busy. He was very much hands off
Okay.
when it came to the kids. And the relationships were very different then. It was, you don't speak unless you're spoken to, you have minimal interaction with the father. They had
So,
to address the father like they were in the military. Yes, sir. No, sir.
how did his father feel once he became one of the key members of the counterculture movement that was anti-war or seen as anti-war?
He practically disowned him.
Okay. And was his father actively working at that time to derail the movement that Jim was a part of, or Jim was, leading to some degree?
To do the movement. No, he was removed from that.
All right, but his father was aware of a plan to derail that movement. Is that correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So another figure that has a similar background is that of Frank Zappa, who was also in Laurel Canyon at the time. And
Oh,
his father was also, I think, military intelligence. And if you're a Frank Zappa fan and you read his lyrics, I mean, it's not too he's super influenced by all that. He's very anti and what we would call today, conspiratorial and stuff like that, right? And there's a famous line for one of his songs, The Plastic People, that says, "And there's this guy from the CIA and he's creeping around Laurel Canyon." Right? So that adds a little bit to the lore of this, the infiltration to the scene. So let's pull in Frank Zappa.
oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
So what does he think of the idea that the 60s counterculture was infiltrated by the US government or intelligence agencies or the military? How does he feel about that now that he's on the other side?
Oh, they were definitely there. They saw them as traitors. They were collecting information on them. They were being followed, watched. Yeah, definitely.
Were there any artists that were being like actively influenced by these forces unknowingly?
Yes.
Were they being like how were they being influenced? Was it by drugs? Was it the management saying you should do this, you should do that?
No, they were warned to stop
Oh,
and that they would be arrested for treason.
so they were directly saying don't do this. I don't think that worked too well. Um, Usually that kind of incentive is just going to make you want to do more, especially if you're the
Yeah,
counterculture type, right? You're already against the authority. I mean, if they're coming to you directly, you're probably not going to be too intimidated. Was Frank ever intimidated by this?
he was. Yes.
What did they specifically do to him?
They locked him up.
Okay. Like they put him in jail, or I'm not aware of.
No, they were questioning him.
So they were, what were they questioning him about specifically?
Where the lyrics, why would you do this?
Hmm.
Um, you're a bad influence, you're anti-American.
Hmm.
And he just said whatever they wanted to hear and then he left.
Okay.
They let him go, on the condition that he would be rearrested
Hmm.
again and that they could make him disappear.
Right. Is he aware now, being on the other side, of any of the music executives or industry that, would have contact with these artists? Did they have relationships with military intelligence or things like that? And were they trying to push certain artists or keep certain artists down or?
They were definitely trying to keep people down, but they couldn't. They couldn't. It was too big. The movement was too big.
Right.
Um, they thought that they could control it, but no way. They couldn't do that. There was too many underground radios, too many underground meetups, too many underground anarchist groups. Um, what he's saying is the artists, the musicians were the least of their worries. They were just capturing the feeling at the time and writing about it.
Mm, right.
They were just representing what was going on, capturing the mood. You can try to blame the artist all you want to. It was too big. You needed to go more underground.
Right. That makes sense. Okay, so the next part of this conspiracy in Laurel Canyon is that there is a facility there called Lookout Mountain. Okay, and this was at the time, it's no longer an operation, obviously. It was a top secret military base where they had their supposed quote unquote film studio there. The official story is that this is where they viewed the atomic weapons program videos at this complex. That's what they say it was used for. However, there is reports now, declassified reports, that top Hollywood A-list actors at the time had top secret clearance there, and we don't really know what they were doing there. I know Marilyn Monroe was name is thrown around, and then I can't remember. There's a few other A-listers of the time of that era that seem to have visited there for whatever reason. Okay, let's ask Zappa. Was this Lookout Mountain in Laurel Canyon, was this connected to the same forces that were trying to infiltrate the counterculture movement in Laurel Canyon?
Yes, it was like a spy hub.
Right. Okay. And what else was going on there? I've heard a lot of different ideas of what was going on at this Lookout Mountain facility over different periods. I've heard that the moon missions that were faked were filmed there. Is that true?
Yes.
Interesting. So was Stanley Kubrick involved in that? You, it's
Not
a dir-
directly. No,
okay.
I
He's
mean
a direct.
not always directly.
Okay. Um, but indirectly, was he somehow involved with that?
Yes.
Okay. Other things I've heard were the Manhattan Project. The footage was used there, and I heard that they were viewing videos of supposed portals that they had opened up. That sounds crazy, but were there, secret videos of like anomalous things that were also kept there or viewed there or inspected there?
There were.
Were there portals that were filmed that were apparently opened up through the Manhattan Project?
No.
Okay, well, what sort of things other than that? Like, what was the Hollywood thing that was going on there? Why did top A-list actors have top secret clearance at this place?
Because they were connected to very important people.
Now that I'm remembering that I read was they were filming possible like propaganda videos there for like foreign propaganda where they would make films of like famous people that they would be shown as doing things that were like illegal or stuff like that to incriminate people, almost like you would do in the modern age with like an AI fake. Right? They get these actors that would look like politicians somewhere else, and they would make these fake videos and then maybe try and use them as I don't know, extortion or something like that. Was this something that was going on there?
Very loosely. Yes.
Okay, interesting. Who were they trying to target with these sort of things? Like other
The
governments?
Chinese.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Wouldn't have guessed that, but okay, interesting. Not the Russians?
Not at that time, no.
Okay. All right. That's what I would have assumed. What else was going on there that we don't know about this Lookout Mountain and Laurel Canyon? Was there any other sort of things that are top secret today that we don't know about that happened there that are interesting? I heard Walt Disney's name thrown around as well, actually.
Okay. I mean, really, these people are useful spies.
Hmm.
They could entertain people that otherwise the government couldn't get close to.
Right.
They were acting like spies. They were planning devices on behalf of the government. It was a way to access people that they wanted to really watch.
Okay. And was that domestic spying or foreign?
Both.
Let's move on to Charlie Manson. Okay, so recently we had a hearing in the United States directly tied to MK Ultra, and Charles Manson was brought up as possibly being an CIA asset, and of course there have been many books written about this. It seems Mr. Manson was very elusive at he went to jail many times, and he always seemed to get out. Um, he seemed to be protected by someone or something. At least that's what it seemed, unless this was all kind of a coincidence. Charles Manson let's ask Mr. Zappa because he's an expert at what was going on in there at the time. Was he a CIA asset at one time or another?
Hmm. In some cases, yes.
So he had the incredible ability, or not so incredible ability, however you want to look at it, to have control over people. Obviously, he ran the cult, and a lot of troubled individuals were manipulated by him. Was there a program to distribute him drugs to be able to do this, or to train him to be able to do this? Why was he a CIA asset at one time?
Because he also was involved in, he was supplying drugs to people that they were interested in.
Okay. So basically, he was compromising people, or that they wanted to get close to.
That they wanted to. Yes, he would, but they always knew he was on edge, right? They always
Mm,
knew there was something wrong with this guy and
okay.
that he was not a reliable contact.
He ever officially part of MK Ultra, meaning that they messed with his mind somehow to be able to be unstable, or was he already
No,
there?
he was unstable anyway.
Okay. Is it true that they, got him out of jail a bunch of times and kind of protected him?
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, it seems to be the case. So that was his role. Was he distributing LSD that was made by government scientists?
yes.
Okay. And so I guess that's where I would say it's a link to MK Ultra. Not that he was necessarily mind controlled. He may have mind controlled himself through
But you know
taking those.
what's coming through? Sorry, you know what's coming through? They can't mind control someone who's crazy.
Right. So if you're already schizophrenic, it's probably pretty hard.
If you're already crazy, it's very hard to mind control. You want run of the mill Joe Blogs.
Yeah.
Not someone who is so whacked out on drugs, who's a psycho anyway. He was very difficult to work with.
So he regularly visited the Haight-Ashbury Free Clinic in San Francisco, which is obviously, the birthplace of the 60s counterculture movement, some people would say, that area. And there's also been, declassified documents to show that there was a doctor there that had connections to CIA or possibly MK Ultra, who was maybe involved in the LSD thing. So was that the connection between Manson and him getting the drugs? Was it at the clinic, or was it another connection?
He was doing favors and they would pay him in LSD. I mean, this guy's a total drug addict, or
Mm,
was at the time.
okay.
Is that where one of his collection points was? Yeah, it was.
Okay. All right.
And he
Okay.
was making a lot of money off of this stuff too.
All right. So does Zappa think that he was being used as a tool in this plan to derail the 60s movement, or was this just him being a loose cannon on his own?
He was a loose cannon.
Right. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to the last piece of this, the Grateful Dead.
Oh gosh, yeah, okay.
So there's a lot of talk that a few people that
Mhm.
were in that original, not the group itself, but they were surrounded by a lot of the counterculture, that they were involved with these forces as well that were trying to derail the movement. And the theory is that they were responsible for introducing all of these drugs to be, as a way to derail the movement in terms of being anti-war. Let's get them high, and they won't be focusing so much on, making as much of an impact. Don't know if that's true or not, but I'm just giving what people are thinking may have happened. So there were,
That
go ahead.
that was certainly something they thought that they could achieve, but it backfired spectacularly.
Yeah, I would say it did. But it's still
Hmm.
interesting to know that they were trying to do that. Like there was forces within the US government that thought, okay, we're gonna feed these guys a bunch of drugs and they're gonna fall apart. It's got to be almost like war crimes a little bit, right? It's like chemical warfare in a way.
Yeah.
right? I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was illegal by every stretch of the imagination. So, was it true that they were surrounded with, possible CIA assets that were feeding drugs to the community and to the band themselves? Was that connection true?
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
So, the big theory that everybody remembers is, Ken Kesey, right? We now know through documents that were released that the LSD studies that he did were funded by the CIA. We now know that, right? And then Ken Kesey obviously became a huge member of the counterculture later on, and the electric acid Kool-Aid test and all that stuff, right? So was this work that the CIA was doing with Ken Kesey, was that like an experiment kind of gone wrong that they then tried to weaponize against the culture? Or was that the plan all along from the beginning?
Were they trying? I mean, they did it for lots of different reasons, right?
Mm.
They did. But yes, that would be considered one of them. Yes.
So would Zappa say, and I know this is like, his opinion or whatever, but would he say that the Grateful Dead wasn't a completely organic movement, grassroots movement, I should say? Or were there a lot of federal agents supporting them? Is there any truth to that?
And it wasn't grassroots, was it? A lot of federal aid. They were propped up by the government. That is true.
And how so? Like, in what capacity were they?
They funded them. They promoted them.
Interesting. So this was kind of like a psychological operation, maybe in a way you would say?
Very psychological. And again, it was a failed operation.
Right. Because if anything, it just kind of fueled what they didn't want, I would think. Or maybe I'm wrong.
But you see that the Grateful Dead didn't understand exactly what was going on.
Okay.
You know, that they're not going to give them all the pieces to the puzzle at the time.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I would assume that as well. Okay. And so but they failed. What were their intended goals behind funding the Grateful Dead?
That they could round up everyone in one place and they could monitor them in
Mm,
one place. They knew, you know, who these people were that were the part of the anarchist movement, the
right.
anti-war movement. It was a way to watch everyone.
And how successful were they at attaining those goals?
No, hardly at all.
Okay. Yeah, I seem to remember watching documentaries before where I'd heard these things and there was agents that went in that just kind of became deadheads, as they're called.
Right.
They started taking the drugs and partying, and they were no longer agents anymore. They were like in the movement. I'm just remembering like hearing stories of that. So was that something that's true that a lot of their agents turned to the other side?
Some of them, yeah, that's true.
That's funny, yeah.
Wow.
Just
Well,
remember
you
that.
know, that stuff is highly addictive.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
And they had to pretend to be part of the crowd.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're just completely hooked on it.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's ask Zappa, kind of in closing to wrap this all up. How much of the counterculture movement of the 60s does he think was originally started without being organic or grassroots? Obviously, it turned out to be organic in the end and everything failed. But how did it start? Like, did it all start out being influenced in the beginning and it kind
He,
of got out of hand or?
he says about 50% was
Interesting.
grassroots. Yeah.
Okay. Right. I kind of feel that as well too. But either way, we still benefited. The fans of music still benefited greatly because it seemed to have blown up in the face of the people that tried to manufacture this stuff. So, um,
Mm.
very interesting. Okay. Is there anything else Mr. Zappa would like to tell us today? Like, how does he feel about today's music? Is it still being manufactured in that way? or try
No,
to. So there's
no,
not
it's
like
not.
counterintelligence agencies that are trying to influence modern music.
No, it's too spread out.
Okay. All right. Uh,
And it's not really music anymore, right?
hmm.
It's not music anymore. He says it's more in the way of like podcasts and shorts and Twitter, and it's different. It's a whole different outlet now.
It's kind of hard to fake that kind of stuff in some ways, right? Like if people are getting popular off of TikTok, it's very hard to manufacture virality.
Really, it's playing right into the hands of what the government doesn't want to, they don't want one outlet. So it's hard to find this information. However, we got on a video, I think a couple of weeks ago, which is once you start liking one thing, then it starts to put more things of that sort of alignment, pushing it towards you. So, really their beef should be with the platforms that are
Yes.
using the algorithms to keep people on there by pushing more of the same information, maybe just different angles of it. They can't control that. It's beyond their control now. The only way they could control it is to shut down the platforms. And they're not willing to do that because
Right.
if they shut down the platforms, then they can no longer spy on people and see what people are doing.
There's way fewer companies that control all of our media now, right? So back in the era of the 50s and 60s, there was laws against how many radio stations a company could own. Today, there's basically one company that owns all the radio stations in the United States. There's XM satellite radio and they have everything, right? In terms of satellite radio, right? There's only three music companies out there,
Hmm.
right? That control all of the music. And then there's only one streaming platform. You got Spotify, and that's pretty much it. That controls all of the music. So the music companies are irrelevant. It's the one company that has a monopoly over that, right? Netflix is in control of all of that media, right? YouTube owns the monopoly on that, right? On videos online. So if anything, you would think it'd actually be easier to control the media than ever before. And if you control the algorithm, you control on those platforms, you control everything. So let's ask Zappa, are there forces trying to control the algorithm right now on social media from this monopoly? Maybe not the government, but
Oh, yeah, there definitely are.
and their
The
motives.
government, the only way they're going to combat this is with AI implementation.
What do you mean by that? They're going to enforce things with AI?
In order to find what they consider dangerous content.
Okay, gotcha. All right. So where does Frank Zappa think we're going in terms of media? Is it going to become more organic and grassroots, or is it going to become more centralized by large companies?
No, it's more centralized.
Okay. Will there
I
ever be
mean,
a
you have
or
some grassroots, but not
yeah.
really, not reaching the masses. You may have like one breakaway, like the kid who I was talking about this the other day, the one that exposed all the Somalian daycares. You may have that. It's very short-lived.
I think we've done a Jim Morrison video before, so you guys can watch that here.
We probed Jim Morrison, channeled Jim Morrison before, so if you're interested in that video, do check it out.
See you next time. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.